Hey everybody, it's Randy with Carchaeology, and today's video I want to tell you a little bit about my history with the Honda automotive brand. So this one right here without the front bumper on it was my very first car. Now I bought that car when I was 13 years old. It was in pieces when I got it, and by the time I had my driver's license, well, I had a car that ran and drove. In fact, I had it running and driving a little bit before I had my license, but don't tell my parents that I was driving. In any case, that little Honda kind of started it all. I started out with a real pile of junk, and it was my first time of doing customization. You know, I tricked the thing out. I painted it all monochrome. I put in a wink mirror that went across the top. I did my own little air dam and little fender flares and all sorts of stuff. And it was really pretty trick, but it was poorly done, certainly, but I was a punk kid. I didn't know any better. I painted the thing with rattle cans. I ended up getting the engine apart and back together, and never had reverse gear and so on and so forth. But that's what really kind of started it. That was my first car. Now, I graduated high school in 1984, and 84 is when the Honda CRX came out, and I remember seeing when they were coming out. I even went to one of the Honda dealers to see one. That was the dream car for me. And some number of years ago, I came across a really nice 84 CRX that I brought it out to one of the Radwood events, and it was totally awesome. And I have found yet another Honda CRX. And the CRX that I found is a pretty spectacular one. But before I go into that, I want to go through some of the other Hondas that I've had. So back when I was getting into the Volkswagen scene, building VWs and driving those on a daily basis, I eventually got a job where I really needed to travel and put some miles on some stuff, and so I bought a Honda Civic station wagon. Now they called those also the Wago van. Some people called them a shuttle, but it was basically a station wagon Honda Civic, very tall, very roomy. And I had a blast with that car. In fact, it opened up my whole world. I finally had a reliable automobile that could take me absolutely anywhere, and I went everywhere with it. And I couldn't leave it alone. I tricked it out. I painted it up like the SI model painted the bumpers. I put some custom wheels on it. I tinted the windows. I put a big stereo in it. My buddies and I would all hop in that thing and drive out to the river and do whatever. I'd go to swap meets and pack it solid full of stuff. It was an amazing, amazing automobile. And then as time went on, I had some different other modern cars and stuff. When we started having a family and we got into the minivan scene, we had a couple of Honda Odysseys. We had a Honda Element as a driver. I put a tow hitch on that. I used that to tow old VWs around with it. My wife today has a really nice Honda CR-V Touring that we bought new. And it seems like there's always been a Honda in the background of what's going on here. They are obviously well-respected, they just keep damn running. So reliable automobiles have been what Hondas have been for me. Now, I've never really gotten into the tuning scene. I've never really done any crazy sort of stuff other than modifying my own cars just for fun. But I do remember reading an article back in the day in Car and Driver magazine about an extremely modified Honda CRX. So let's get into that. So, Car and Driver magazine back in the 1980s was in its heyday. It was a really thick magazine. They were the top of the pops when it came to that sort of thing. And when Car and Driver asked for something, they usually got it. And so they came up with a really interesting idea of taking the new Honda CRX and putting two engines in it. Now, they were kind of known for doing wacky things. They did some other crazy projects and stuff like that. But this one they wanted to go a little bit different with and try to get kind of serious with it. They wanted to see if they could do two completely different drivetrains in the car, somehow have them sync up and have it be a drivable, runnable, fun machine. So they're basically doubling the horsepower of a stock CRX, making it four-wheel drive, and, well, certainly they're adding some weight to it, but since they're adding just an engine and drivetrain to an existing car, well, it's not that much. In any case, the concept of it was fairly simple. However, the application of it, making it actually happen, was something that took some professional help. Now, they contacted some folks in Orange County, California called Racing Beat. Now, Racing Beat is still in business today. They are known mostly for Mazda rotary stuff, but they were really heavy into racing, knew about fabrication, and they were doing a lot of work with Car and Driver at the time. So when Car and Driver approached them, they said, heck yeah, let's roll with it. So it was up to them to actually fit the drivetrain into the back of the car. In this article, which I just received in the mail here today, finding old articles on or issues on eBay is a good way to go. You can see this bottom side shot here that shows the rear end in place. You can see the way they routed the exhaust, the way they did all of the suspension and that sort of thing. And they basically put a whole subframe and engine, steering, etc. into the back of the CRX. They locked the steering so that it did not turn, and they just kind of went with it. So you can see this picture here, the rear structure. It's a stock front crossmember supported by 9 tubes. They did holes for camber adjustment and things like that. They ended up doing significant testing with it to get it dialed in so it actually handled well. You can see this slalom shot here of it winging around. And after a day of chassis tuning, it was actually a pretty drivable, usable machine. Now, the article is just hilarious to read through it. When they talk about their nutball project ideas, they talk about the ridiculousness of having this all put together, you know, doing the whole idea of it, getting the okay of it, approaching Honda to say, hey, this is what we want to do, and to have them actually say, okay, we'll give you a brand new Honda CRX and 2 drivetrains. Come on. That sort of stuff does not happen today. But they took the ball and they ran with it. It took them about 6 months to put the thing together, about $20,000 on top of getting the free car and the free drivetrain. So this was not a cheap build. And in the end, it ran, it drove. They took it off-road. They took it in the snow. They took it on the slalom. They drove it around and had an absolute blast with it. A full set of gauges, 2 of each down the center console so they could monitor the heat and operation of both of the engines. And then they hid it all behind a really nicely trimmed out box in the back with the spare in place, access holes on the top and the side. Pretty well done. Now, at the end of the article, when they did their testing, when they went through it and saw the overall results, they realized, well, there's probably room to make it faster. And since it was such a success the first time around, at the end, they said, we have no intention of stopping here. So they doubled the horsepower, but let's see what we can do to make it even faster. So, flash forward a few months. This is May 1985, and this issue here is October of 1985. Let me get it out of its sleeve and see if I can open it up to the article here. From this, the project synchronicity to this, super synchronicity. Now, they took the same CRX and they brought it back to Honda. They said, hey, what can we do about getting more horsepower? And Honda provided them with 2 brand new 1.8 liter engines, the 12-valve ones, with 4-speed automatic transmissions that were from Honda Accords. Now, these were cars, or these came from cars that were damaged in transit, so Honda of America was pretty happy to get rid of a couple of problems there and satisfy the press, which worked out very well for Car and Driver. And they swapped engines in that car so that they had more horsepower and they also had better gearing to roll with. While they were at it, they did some dress-up stuff. They went with some Recaro seats in the front that were custom done with the Honda fabric and the inserts. They did a full Mugen body kit in it. This is the wide body kit where it stretches out over the fender wells a little bit. There's a different rear wing, a different front spoiler, different bumper altogether. You can see the difference here between this with the gap there at the base of the hood versus here where it comes all the way down. So this front valance, the front bumper, side skirts, rear end, all of that sort of stuff was swapped out as well. So then with that added horsepower, they took it out and did some further testing. And sure enough, it was even faster and even crazier. So that car was eventually sold by Car and Driver, and it went off to a couple of owners somewhere. And recently I came across a gentleman that claimed that he had the car and that he had bought it in the 1990s. And he had posted something about the car on Facebook on just kind of a random group that I came across. He said, I have this car. It's been sitting for a while. I am interested in selling it. And it blew my mind because, man, I remember this magazine article and I remember that car from back when I was fresh out of high school and dreaming of having a CRX. And so I contacted him. I asked him for more information, and then I did a little research online. And sure enough, there was actually some pretty strong coverage of this car in the past few years on the internet. So in fact, the gentleman that was behind the whole thing for Car and Driver, he came out to Florida where the car was and was reunited with it. Unfortunately, the car was not running and driving at the time, but there's some great online articles about it. If you just look up Twin Engine Honda CRX or Double Engine CRX, anything, you'll come up not only with the article from Car and Driver of the original guy going back there to see it, but also there's a video of a gentleman that went down to see it and walk around it and check it out up close. Now, a really cool part about it coming here to Carchaeology is that it brings it back to Southern California where it was first conceived and built in the first place. And my hope is that I can get it back into the hands of some of the people that were involved with the build back in 1980s. So Racing Beat is still around. In fact, they're still down in Anaheim, which is not too far. I do plan on contacting them and bringing the car down to them so that they can see it. There's a company called Jackson Racing that is well known for their import performance stuff. And I remember they were heavily involved in Honda racing back in the 1980s. And in fact, one of the main guys behind Jackson Racing posted on a photo that I had, or that had been shared up on Instagram. And he recalled how amazing it was to drive that car and that he looks forward to seeing it again. So that is my next challenge here is when this car gets here, we need to get it up and running and driving. And then I'll deal with some of the cosmetic stuff. It has deteriorated a little bit, but my goal is to get the thing together, running and driving in time for the Japanese Classic Car Show that happens in October down in Long Beach, California. And at the same time, if I can share it with some of the people that were around when it was first built, that'll be awesome as well. And then who knows where it'll go from there. I definitely want to share this car with as many people as possible, and I really want to experience it myself because the gentleman that I bought it from said that it was without a doubt the most fun automobile he had ever owned and driven. And this guy had a long list of amazing cars, Panteras, and all sorts of different stuff, and his favorite car was the Honda CRX. So it is on the truck. It is on its way out here. It's going to be here in the next couple of days. I'm totally looking forward to getting it off of the truck here into the lab where I can rip into it, see what it's all about, and relive my fantasies of having a Honda CRX once again. And not only any CRX, but the Car and Driver CRX that's right here. Anyway, please subscribe, follow along on this adventure. I think it's going to lead me to some real amazing places and to meet some really interesting people. And I definitely want to take you guys on a ride in the Twin Engine CRX because it's definitely something to remember. In any case, thanks so much for watching. Keep on digging them up and driving them. Bye-bye.